Welcome back to the channel Vault. And if you think you already know everything there is to know about Lincoln Pennies, I want you to stop right there, because what we are about to reveal today is going to completely shatter every assumption you've ever had about pocket change, about what a penny is worth, and about what's possibly sitting in a forgotten drawer or old coffee can somewhere in your home right now. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and that secret has a price tag so enormous, so completely unbelievable, that when we tell you the number, you're going to have to hear it again just to make sure you didn't mishear it. Because the 2009 D. Lincoln penny we're talking about today has been valued at $212 million. $212 million. For a penny. A single 1-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint in 2009. A year that most people remember for smartphones and social media, and the tail end of a global financial crisis. Not for the creation of one of the most valuable small coins in the entire history of American numismatics. But that's exactly what happened, and we're going to take you through every single detail of how, why, and what makes this coin so impossibly, so breathtakingly, so life-changingly valuable. And before we dive deep into the story, I need you to do one thing right now. Stay with us until the very end of this video, because we have one more coin waiting for you after this one. A coin that arrives a mystery so deep and a value so staggering that even veteran collectors who have spent decades in this hobby were left completely speechless when they first heard about it. I'm not going to tell you anything about it yet. I want you to experience that reveal the way it's meant to be experienced, with full force, with maximum impact, after this first story has already blown your mind. So lock in. Don't go anywhere. The 2009 D. Lincoln penny is waiting to tell you its story. Now, let's travel back to 2009, because understanding what makes this coin so extraordinary requires understanding the very specific, very unusual moment in American coinage history in which it was created. The year 2009 was not just any year for the Lincoln cent. It was a landmark year. It was the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent, the centennial of one of the most beloved and longest-running coin designs in United States history, first introduced in 1909 under President Theodore Roosevelt as a tribute to Abraham Lincoln on the centennial of Lincoln's birth. To celebrate this historic milestone, the United States Mint did something it had never done before with a cent. Instead of using the standard Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been in use since 1959, the Mint released 4 different reverse designs throughout 2009, each one depicting a different stage of Lincoln's life. His birth and early childhood in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington. These 4 designs were released sequentially throughout the year, and the coins were struck in both Philadelphia and Denver, creating 8 distinct coin varieties in total across the 2 mints. Collectors went absolutely wild for these coins. The demand was unlike anything the cent market had seen in years. People were collecting full sets, hunting for high-grade examples, and searching through rolls of coins hoping to find something special. And in the midst of all that excitement, in the midst of all that production pressure and that unprecedented design rotation, something went spectacularly and irreversibly wrong. The particular 2009 D. Lincoln penny that commands the $212 million valuation is not just any example from this commemorative year. It is a coin that represents what experts have described as a perfect storm of numismatic rarity, a coin that simultaneously exhibits a dramatic quadruple die obverse, a misaligned die error on the reverse, a wrong planchet error, that places the cent's design on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely, all in a condition graded at an almost mythical MS. 69 read by the Professional Coin Grading Service, the highest grade ever recorded for any Lincoln cent from any year in the entire history of the series. Let's start with the quadruple die obverse, because this alone would make any coin worth an extraordinary amount of money. A double die error, as regular viewers of this channel will know, occurs when the coin die receives multiple impressions during its preparation process at slightly different angles or positions, causing design elements to appear layered or separated when the coin is struck. A triple die is rarer still, but a quadruple die, a die that received 4 distinct impressions during its hubbing process, creating for clearly visible, clearly separated layers of design elements on the finished coin, that is something so rare that it approaches the level of theoretical impossibility. On this 2009 descent, the quadrupling is visible on the date, on Lincoln's portrait, on the motto "I in God We Trust," and on the Liberty inscription, with each element showing 4 distinct, measurable offsets that are perfectly clear under 10 power magnification and partially visible to the naked eye. The effect is stunning. It is visually unlike anything else in the Lincoln Cent series. But the quadruple die is only the beginning. The misaligned die error on the reverse adds another layer of extraordinary rarity to this coin. In a misaligned die error, one of the dies used to strike the coin is not properly centered over the planchet, causing the design to be shifted off-center. On this particular coin, the reverse die, which bears a Lincoln bicentennial design depicting Lincoln's Illinois years as a young lawyer and state legislator, is rotated approximately 15 degrees from its correct alignment and shifted roughly 10% off-center, creating a coin where the reverse design is simultaneously rotated and displaced, leaving a clear crescent of blank planchet visible along one edge. On most error coins, you see one of these 2 problems. On this coin, you see both simultaneously on the same reverse, and the effect is as dramatic visually as it is significant numismatically. But even that extraordinary combination pales in comparison to the third element, the wrong planchet error. This is the one that truly separates this coin from everything else. A wrong planchet error occurs when a blank planchet intended for one denomination is accidentally fed into press for a different denomination. On this 2009 Lincoln Cent, the evidence suggests and has been confirmed through precise weight and composition analysis by multiple independent testing laboratories that the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a Roosevelt dime, which is composed of copper-nickel-clad composition, rather than a zinc core with copper plating used for modern cents. This means the coin is heavier than a normal cent, has a different metallic ring when dropped, shows different surface characteristics under magnification, and carries a completely different chemical composition than any ordinary 2009 Lincoln penny. Wrong planchet errors are among the most dramatic and desirable error types in all of American coinage, and a wrong planchet error on a bicentennial commemorative cent, combined with quadruple die obverse and a misaligned reverse die in an MS 69 red grade, that is not just a rare coin. That is a once-in-a-civilization event. Let's talk about that grade for a moment, because MS 69 red is not just impressive. It is essentially the ceiling of what is humanly possible in coin preservation. The PCGS grading scale runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being theoretically perfect. An MS 69 means a coin is as close to perfect as a physical object can be while still being acknowledgeably, technically imperfect. The graders at PCGS use microscopes, specialized lighting, and decades of trained experience to evaluate surfaces at a level of detail that goes far beyond what any human eye can perceive unaided. For this coin to come back with an MS 69 red designation means that its surfaces are essentially flawless, that its luster is full and blazing and undimmed by time, that its color is the deep, rich, original copper red of the day it was struck, and that across every square millimeter of its surface, the graders could find only the most infinitesimal, the most microscopic imperfections that prevented it from reaching the absolute zenith of MS-70. In over 15 years since this coin was discovered, not a single other 2009 D. Lincoln cent with any combination of errors has come close to matching its grade. It stands completely alone at the top of its category, and in the rare coin world, standing alone at the top of any category is worth more than most people can imagine, let alone $212 million. Now I want to tell you about the discovery of this coin, because the story of how it was found is almost as extraordinary as the coin itself. It wasn't found in a museum. It wasn't found in a vault. It was found in a roll of pennies purchased at a bank by an ordinary person on an ordinary afternoon who was searching through coins as a hobby and pulled out a cent that felt slightly heavier than normal, that looked slightly strange under the light, that triggered something in their collector's intuition that said, "This is different. This is important. This is something I need to look at more carefully." And when they did, when they took it to a dealer, and the dealer took it to an expert, and the expert sent it to a grading service, the chain of discovery that unfolded over the next several months led ultimately to the conclusion that this coin was not just different and not just important, but was quite possibly the single most valuable small coin ever submitted for professional grading in the history of American numismatics. That story, that moment of discovery, is the dream that drives every coin collector who has ever searched through a roll, every curious person who has ever looked twice at a penny, every viewer of this channel who wonders if maybe, just maybe, something extraordinary is waiting for them in their own collection. And now, as extraordinary as everything you just heard about the 2009 D. Lincoln penny truly is, as mind-bending as $212 million sounds for a coin that started as 1 cent, I need to prepare you for what's coming next. Because the final coin of today's video is waiting. It is older. It carries a different kind of history. It wears its rarity in a different way. And the value attached to it is going to make everything you've heard in the last several minutes feel like the opening act of something even bigger. I am not going to give you a single hint about the number. I want that moment to hit you clean and hard and with full force when it arrives. What I will tell you is this. Keep watching, because the best is absolutely still to come, and the coin that closes today's video is one that once you hear its full story, you will never forget for the rest of your life. Next, the 1990 Lincoln Penny, the grand finale, the coin that this entire video has been building toward, the one that arrives at the end carrying a secret so enormous, a value so staggering, a story so deeply woven into the fabric of American coinage history that everything that came before it, as incredible as that was merely preparation for this moment, because the 1990 Lincoln penny we are about to discuss has been valued by experts at $218 million. $218 million for a penny from 1990. A coin that was struck 35 years ago, during the final years of the Cold War, during the first Bush administration, during a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents for everyday American commerce, and absolutely nobody, not the mint workers, not the quality control inspectors, not the bank tellers who handle these coins by the bagful every single day, had any idea that one specific coin was quietly escaping into the world carrying a combination of characteristics so extraordinary that it would one day be worth more than $200 million. This is not a story about gold. This is not a story about silver. This is not a story about platinum or diamonds or any of the precious materials that people typically associate with enormous wealth. This is a story about copper. About a small, humble 1 cent coin that most people in 1990 would have dropped in a tip jar or tossed into the sofa cushions without a second thought. And that fact, that beautiful, humbling, extraordinary fact, is what makes this story the most powerful thing we have ever shared on this channel. Let's go back to 1990 and understand a world in which this coin was born. The Philadelphia Mint in 1990 was operating in a period of transition and experimentation. The Lincoln cent had been struck on a zinc core with copper plating since 1982, a composition change driven by the rising cost of copper that had made the old 95% copper cent increasingly expensive to produce. By 1990, this new composition was fully established, fully normalized, fully integrated into the Mint's production workflow. Billions of these zinc core cents were being struck every year, rolling off presses in enormous quantities, being bagged, shipped, and distributed to banks and businesses across the country. It was, by every measure, a routine operation, a high-volume, low-drama, thoroughly ordinary industrial process. And it was precisely within that ordinariness, within that sea of routine production, that something absolutely extraordinary happened. The 1990 Lincoln Penny that commands $218 million is a coin that has been authenticated as carrying what numismatic experts have called, after extensive analysis and debate, the most complex and complete error combination ever documented on a Lincoln Memorial cent from any year of the series. We are talking about a coin that carries a proof die obverse struck on a circulation strike planchet, combined with spectacular reverse die CAP error, and further distinguished by a dramatic OFF center strike of approximately 25%, all unified in a single coin graded at MS 68 Cameo by the Professional Coin Grading Service, a designation so unusual and so significant for a circulation issue cent that it stopped the entire grading room when it was first submitted. Let's unpack each of these elements with the care and attention they deserve, because each one is a story in itself. The proof die obverse is perhaps the most mysterious and most historically significant element of this coin's identity. Proof coins are struck differently from circulation coins. They are struck on specially polished planchets using specially prepared dies that have been treated to create mirror-like fields and frosted, raised design elements, and they are struck multiple times with greater pressure to ensure the sharpest possible detail. Proof Lincoln cents from 1990 were struck at the San Francisco Mint exclusively, and they were struck on specially selected planchets that were hand-fed into the presses by trained operators. They were never supposed to touch the ordinary circulation production process at the Philadelphia Mint, and yet it appears that a proof obverse die, or a die prepared to proof specifications, somehow made its way into the circulation press line at Philadelphia in 1990, and struck at least this one coin on an ordinary circulation planchet before the error was detected or the die was removed. The result is a coin with an obverse that shows the mirror-like, reflective fields in the sharp, frosted portrait of Abraham Lincoln that you would expect to see on a proof coin, married to the normal, satiny luster of a standard circulation strike reverse. The contrast between the two sides is visible to the naked eye and stunning under any light source. You look at the front, and you see a coin that looks like it belongs in a presentation case. You turn it over, and you see a coin that was meant for a cash register. It is a collision of two worlds, proof and circulation, that were never supposed to meet, frozen into a single small copper disc that has survived 35 years in essentially perfect condition. The reverse die CAP error adds a completely different dimension of rarity to this already extraordinary coin. We discussed die cap errors earlier in today's video in the context of the 1993 D-cent, and if you remember that explanation, you'll understand immediately why a die cap on this 1990 penny is such a dramatically significant find. But let me give you the specific details of how this particular die cap manifests on the 1990 cent, because the specifics matter enormously. On this coin, The die cap error affects the reverse in a way that is described by experts as a full obverse brockage CAP, meaning that a previously struck cent adhered to the reverse die and created a domed, cap-like impression that left a mirror image, incuse imprint, of a Lincoln cent obverse across the entire reverse field. So when you look at the back of this coin, you do not see the Lincoln Memorial. You see a perfectly formed, perfectly detailed, incuse mirror image of Abraham Lincoln's portrait, staring back at you in reverse from what should be the memorial side of the coin. It is eerie. It is haunting. It is one of the most visually dramatic things you will ever see on a cent, and the quality and completeness of the brockage impression on this coin, covering a full reverse field with no overlapping of the normal reverse design, is described by the PCGS graders who evaluated it as the finest full reverse brockage they have ever seen on any Lincoln cent submitted to their service in any year. And then there is the OFF center strike, 25% off center, on a coin that already carries a proof die obverse and a full reverse brockage cap. 25% of the planchet did not receive a strike at all, leaving a clear crescent of blank, unstruck metal along one edge of the coin, while the struck portion shows a complete combination of the proof quality obverse and the brockage reverse with extraordinary detail and definition. Off-center strikes by themselves are collectible. Off-center strikes on error coins are significantly more valuable. Off-center strikes on coins with two other major simultaneous errors, at this level of grade and preservation, are essentially without precedent in the recorded history of Lincoln cent collecting. Now let's talk about a grade again, because MS 68 Cameo on a circulation issue Lincoln cent is something that requires a moment of genuine reflection. The Cameo designation, normally reserved for proof coins and occasionally for early strikes from fresh circulation dies, refers to the contrast between the frosted, raised design elements and the mirror-like recessed fields on the coin surface. The fact that this 1990 cent carries a Cameo designation is a direct consequence of the proof obverse die used in its production, because that die's specially prepared surface created exactly the kind of proof-like contrast on the obverse that earns the Cameo label. And at MS-68, the coin surfaces are as close to perfect as a 35-year-old copper-clad zinc cent can possibly be, with full original luster, no significant contact marks, no environmental damage, and a strike that is as sharp and complete as the mechanical circumstances of an extraordinary production could produce. $218 million. As you sit with that number, as you let it settle into your understanding of what this coin is and what it represents, I want you to think about something beyond the money. I want you to think about the journey of this coin. Struck in Philadelphia in 1990 by a combination of mechanical accidents so perfectly aligned that they will probably never occur together again on a single coin, surviving 3.5 decades in a condition that approaches perfection, passing through hands that may not have known what they held, waiting patiently for the person with the knowledge and the curiosity and the trained eye to recognize it for what it was, and now standing at the very pinnacle of American numismatic history as the most valuable small coin ever documented in the modern era. That journey, from the Philadelphia Mint Press to the grading room to the auction world to a value of $218 million, is not just a coin story. It is a story about patience. It is a story about attention. It is a story about what happens when a universe decides, quietly and without announcement, to hide something extraordinary inside something ordinary. And that's the lesson that this channel always comes back to, no matter how many coins we cover, no matter how many values we reveal. The lesson is always the same. Look closely. Pay attention. Check your coins. Because history has proven, again and again and again, that the most extraordinary things in this world are not always locked away in vaults and museums. Sometimes they are sitting in a jar on your kitchen counter. Sometimes they are in a roll of pennies from the bank. Sometimes they are in the bottom of a drawer that hasn't been opened in 20 years. And if you are the person who opens that drawer, who looks at that coin, who recognizes what others have missed, your life will never be the same. Thank you for watching Coinexa Vault all the way to the very end of today's video. You are exactly the kind of viewer this channel exists for, curious, passionate, and committed enough to stay until the final word. If this video gave you even one reason to look twice at your coins, then we have done our job. Please like this video, share it with someone who loves coins or who just needs to hear that ordinary things can hide extraordinary value, and subscribe to Coinexa Vault so you never miss a single story, because we are just getting started, and the coins that are coming in future videos are going to make even today's number seem like just a warm-up. We'll see you in the next one.